Good day, fellow adventurers. I've prepared a spread of the finest in medieval sticky buns and soft drinks. It's been a while. Glad to have you back. Come in, loosen that belt, and pull up a plate. Welcome to Dresden's Tale, episode 61. This is season 3, volume 3, chapter 57 in our multicultural tale. This is high military fantasy, the kind that needs heroes. Ours is Dresden Fane, a dwarf, a warlock. He's uptight, rude, a kerfuffle just waiting to happen. He's a warrior of the Stone Clan, grimacing his way across a world awash in unwelcome smiles. I'm Lewis Nichols, your partner of crimes, the man who rolls the dice, etc., etc. I'm the guy who wrote this thing, a crazy project spanning 2 decades and a whole cartload of Word documents. Thanks to YouTube, I now have a reasonable way to pass it on to you. In case you're new, let me help you out a bit. Have you heard me call somebody a Pat and wonder what the heck that means? It's not code, not Chads, not Karens, none of that kind of stuff here. Well, maybe a Karen, but she's no Karen. Nope, a Pat is an ethnic group. It refers to the city of Patronsburg and is the largest of human ethnicities, at least in the Celt Empire. They are brown-skinned and known for their curly hair and average build. On Moldav, you have the Gaelic humans, tall, dark skin, and Southies that are really just Pats with a Cushing accent. Manelian humans are somewhat common and stand out like a snowstorm in a bed of coal. The Narishist are a pasty white, but not nearly so many of them around. They stand out by their red hair. Etuine humans are short. The ones from Odessa and Laredo, they might be mistaken for Asians on Earth, but then again, not all Asians look alike. You thought it was hard to recognize all the Tagara ethnicities? They've got nothing on humans. All right, everybody caught up? That's good, because Dresden's life is in danger. Get your weapons out, shields up. Let's get to it. Here on Vool, is it really? My, time does fly. It's Rudy's 6th day, 2052 years after the fall.
Tribulations 36. The easiest way to die in battle is to think about dying in battle.
Pig on a stick, Kira cursed. It wasn't the most usual thing to hear called out in the middle of a battle. It was barely even a curse, yet not very ladylike. Dresden moved forward in support, the look on his girlfriend's face intense as she fought to defend herself against an Iterian swordsman. She was in her chainmail, and not that junky 3-in-1 plus. Hers was light enough to wear around town, and damn sexy with a silk shirt just underneath. It showed a little bit of midriff, a part of her muscular body Dresden considered among his favorites. However, on the battlefield, Kira wore the armor over a thick padded top. Her helm was dark metal and open-faced, stolen from a dead Iterian. She modified it with a protective grille. Her boots were tarnished steel, coming all the way up to spawn protective knee guards. She wore similar gloves. Along with the boots, they were from her homeland, supplied by elves she kept referring to as her mentors. He thought she looked good in the armor, sweaty, a little desperate, waiting on him to come save her. "Donald, come around," Dresden ordered, roaring into combat. "I am Dresden Fane, warlock in the house of Nanok." He did his best to make himself a big target. In his head, it would give Kira a chance to back away, and Liz, on his right, a chance to do some damage. If Ralph and Donald could complete the circle, they'd have the fighter surrounded. "Rah! Ask him what he can do, Dresden," Ralph the Mousebiter cried. "What can you even do?" The plan lasted for an instant. Pull back! They didn't question the order, even though they weren't sure exactly where it originated. As he got clear, 4 new combatants came to the swordsman's aid. Dresden considered a full retreat, as the Iterian Tagara was proving dangerous enough by himself. There in the glaring desert of Vool, the wind shifted, and plans changed yet again. 2 Iliki came into the fight, confronting the swordsman with a whole new balance of power. Now forward! Dresden directed his small team up against the weaker Iterians, trying to protect the swordsman's flank. Anything else? Dresden asked no one in particular. The advice-giving voice didn't respond. He wasn't sure what he expected. There were 100 warriors on the desolate salt flat, and they were all trying to kill each other. Dresden's little band was just one minute part of it, trying to hold some ground on the edge of the chaos near a patch of out-of-place boulders. Their formation put most of Greywood's strength as far away from Dresden as you could get in their half-moon arrangement. He wasn't at all comfortable in their odds of survival. Being the sacrificial play in a skirmish was something he could accept, but he wasn't ready to give up the lives of his friends. Get some! Liz threw up her arms and spun in celebration. She had just solved the dilemma by planting her head square in the swordsman's back. In a single blow, she had turned their fortunes. Leaving the body to be torn asunder by the LXI, she turned to Dresden. Now what? The dwarf looked over to a pair of Iterian archers using the rocks for cover. They only showed a few leather-clad war dogs for protection. Iterian hounds were formidable. They were easily 80 pounds apiece before barding, and they could nearly look Dresden in the eye. But there weren't enough of them to stop his whole team. Dresden rated his pug, made sure his band was ready, and led the charge. Liz let out a whoop when the fighting was done a few minutes later, immediately starting to tell Grace about her headbutt, even though the monkey had surely saw. In total, the whole brutal encounter hadn't lasted more than 10 minutes. Most of that was spent by the two equally matched forces closing the gap between them. Victory is never certain, but to flee is the greatest defeat, Commander Greywood gave his victory speech. That's not just glory-drunk talk. If we would have called a withdrawal, a third of us would have been left behind. When things look bad, remember that. Retreat means the wounded become the dead. I'm proud of each and every one of you. You held and you won. Now, their wounded will pay the price that is our victory. In all, 30 Iterians were killed in the skirmish, over half their original number. 3 seemed important, or at least experienced. Are you keeping it? Liz looked up as if she'd been caught. For a second, it seemed like she was going to hide her prize behind her back. Yeah, maybe. Instead, she held up the Iterian swordsman's head. I know it wasn't really my kill. I don't think the LXI will care. Maybe he does. Help! Kira called out for attention. Dresden, why is he following me? Turning to see the nervous look on her face, Dresden had to laugh. He probably likes your scent. I do. He walked to the beast and scratched its flank. It's not a horse. The handler came striding over. But you're right in a way. It can smell faith. You, young lady, grew up without the Keld teachings it's used to. You're something new. Don't worry, though. As long as you got it mostly right, he won't eat you. Ha ha. Kira craned her neck up at the beast. Emboldened by Dresden, she held out her hand and offered it to sniff. Apparently, that wasn't good enough. It nuzzled her neck, breathing in deeply, and then snorting out a gooey mucus when it was satisfied. Hey! She yelled at it, threatening it with a fist in the air. Whoa, lady! It'll still fight you if you get it riled up. Jump teams will return to town. Most of us are walking. The team's bard and communication specialists interrupted with relayed orders. Dresden Fane, you have loot to haul. Maybe you'll have room enough for 1 or 2 more. We know who that'll be, Ralph squawked. The warlock walked to Kira and kissed her. I'll see you back in town. Come on, Liz. Hero of the day gets the ride. A few minutes later, they were on their way. You've changed it again, the Minotaur observed. The skiff was now circular, with very few features except posts sticking up for the passengers to hold on to. They weren't strictly necessary, but gave people a sense of stability. It's bigger. The size doesn't really mean anything, but it is. The center of the skiff was a pile of armor and weapons. One of the commander's men made a point to tell Dresden they had to hand it over to High Commander Maxine's executors. It's not just for your personal enrichment. Will she be mad about this? Liz asked. Dresden snapped back to the present. Kira? Probably. I never do anything right. A month had flown by since his incarceration. Most of that time had been spent fixing wagons and making jumps back to Fort Roth. The enemy was disruptive and elusive at the same time. I wasn't looking forward to walking, so I say you did just fine. Better to find out now, if she's fussy. She thinks I am. Thinks I complain too much. Do you think we'll ever live down that treasure we took? Don't change the subject. You do complain a lot. It's a good thing she didn't meet you a year ago. I should have offered to carry more loot, Dresden grumbled. That walk might have helped your attitude. They came out of the Astral in a space designated for skiff arrivals. Dresden looked at the cargo, now just a pile of junk on the ground, the blowing sand already starting to infiltrate the horde. I guess we have to do something about this now. Still, it's better than walking. Dresden Fane? A messenger was waiting. Priestess Kimberly is ready to see you. The dwarf nodded. I'll be over as soon as we're done here. You're going to make her wait? The man glared. Oh, go on. I'll get this, Liz told him. Be sure to say hi to the priestess for me. Dresden came to the structure where he'd been questioned weeks before. The Kelds rarely built administrative buildings, and he eventually realized he'd been interrogated in the priestess's sitting room. He now knew she'd been in Opal for a little longer than he had been on Vool, taking the house and renovating it as she had time. A lot had happened since he'd been released. The town had grown. 5,000 warriors erupted to 15,000, including a large force of Campbells that never quit complaining about the debauchery of the southern clans. Wagons full of lumber arrived along with food shipments from Fort Roth. Homes were built along with temples. Several new businesses and shops were constructed near the town's well, which was now powered by the wind. Dresden assumed the town would shrink back after the war, leaving the improved infrastructure for the locals who remained. Dresden hesitated before entering. Across the street, the Monkey woman from the labor camp was tied and hanging upside down from a pole. It couldn't have been too serious, as her ankles were holding most of her weight. If they really wanted to punish her, it would have been her toes. Warriors were already lining up for globs of horse dung to be hurled at her. Stepping in, he was glad to see it was only Priestess Kimberly and a few functionaries waiting for him. You know, we care very, very much for every killed warrior, she told him, without offering him a place to sit. Every up-and-coming militiaman is potentially a great boon to the clans. I'm glad to see you're being a good influence on Ralph. We're all just doing our best. I think you are. He's adrift, and thank the gods he's latched onto you. He's brave enough, and he has the physical attributes to back it up. He's even attractive for a pterodon. He values his friends, but little else. Left alone, he'd sit on his ass and waste all that potential. Dresden, I want you to think about joining the Inquisition. You have a good mind for it. However, that's not why you're here. She gave him a small booklet backed by thick leather. That's your travel journal. It's important, so don't lose another one. Thank you. I won't. I really mean it. This will make things a lot easier for me. There was a loud cheer outside. What's happening out there? Just trying to snip a colt before it takes hold. Prater? It's Prater, I believe, but yes. Bunch of guff. It's dangerous. I'm glad you agree. Your people tend to listen to you, so again, thank you for being a good influence. You said it's a cult? Dresden worried for Liz's sake. Not officially, but it's a problem. It's a shame this war only has you for a year. I think he could do a lot of good here. He wasn't sure what to say. You read Nanok's whole letter? The whole thing? Of course I did. There are no secrets in the Stone Clan. I understand, though. The High Priest has invested a lot in you. He'll earn some of it back with you here, but not enough. I imagine you'll be making skiff runs between Parnsilia and Marvin's Point for the better part of the next decade to pay off all that training. It was true. Nanook told him to return to Parnsilia in the fall, but he hadn't considered the reasons for it. Yes, ma'am. One last thing. Are you carrying any coins? Dresden grunted. A little silver bag. Is there any more stashed away? More than the box under your mattress? It took a minute for him to answer. No secrets in the Stone Clan. No, that's all. You have the rest. No gems, bars, jewelry, cylinders? No, I said you have it. Fine then. It's been turned over to the High Commander Maxine. Due credit given. There is still 600 coins in your box. I didn't take it all. Frankly, you still have more than you should, but it's not an unreasonable amount, considering what you've done. Coins are bad, Dresden. It seems like they make life easier, but they really don't. You read, you should know that. I don't really care about the coins. I won't miss 'em. She smiled. I bet your friends will. Have you ever read A Life in the Markets? He shook his head. I don't have a full copy here, but I have this. She turned around and pulled out a tattered book from a bag on the table behind her. It's a summary, barely 50 pages. It's also a loan. I expect it back someday. Dresden walked out of the building and pulled down his hat, scowling. I hate this place, he grumbled before realizing Kira was standing right there. His chest froze, and he hoped he hadn't heard him complaining. Hey, how did you get here? What's this? She nodded toward the shit-covered monkey. Minor heresy. Pretty light punishment, if you ask me. It's disgusting. I can't even imagine. Mirabelle brought me back. He made 2 trips and had just enough room on his second. Do you want to spend some time together? She was clearly in a bad mood. From her tone, she'd probably heard his complaint, but he nodded and started them towards the tents. She didn't budge. Can we just talk? I know it's bright out here for you, but if we go back to the tent, we're going to end up rolling. I really just can't keep my hands off you. He knew she was probably right. She was aggressive, but he never gave her a reason to hesitate, not knowingly. When she wasn't the instigator, he was. He found he couldn't keep his hands off her either. Dresden took them off in the general direction of the Doom compound, but he thought maybe he'd lead her in a circle around the tents. Maybe she'd be done talking by the time they were closer to their own. How are you so calm in battle? Dresden shrugged. I'm not. I don't know how I've survived this long. I've seen a lot of warriors die. Some of them far better than me. Most of them just got unlucky. I keep telling people I don't know what I'm doing, and I mean it. She came to a stop, looking him deep in the eyes before turning away. He was wondering what she was thinking. What could he tell her? He wasn't brave at all. She looked at him again, then back over his shoulder, her eyes getting wide. Bag of bones, Dresden. She turned again and spread her arms wide. What are we supposed to do? Dresden couldn't figure out what was wrong until she turned him around and pointed his head in the right direction. Something like a pile of stone had just appeared on the north side of town. Steam came off it, in places flames whipped up. Wings fluttered like an inferno that had just ingested new fuel. Is that a dragon? How are we supposed to survive this? She yelled at him. I think he's on our side. I know he's on our side. Iliki, and now dragons. I can't... She trailed off. He embraced her. Yes you can. Follow the faith. There will always be heroes on the battlefield. Warriors and beasts we can't hope to defeat. But all those who might will turn on them. The dragon will be the focus of their strongest. The job of the veteran warriors, like Maxine and Lenny, is to support him. Then we have to back up the veterans. Well, there's probably going to be another step in there, but you get the idea. We're ants, Dresden. Nothing but ants. And nobody gives a damn about the ants. They'll be worried about the dragons. Well, what if they have a dragon? Dresden grunted. If they don't, the war is over. She put her head in his chest. This is nuts, but I trust you. I'm glad they put me in that camp because I couldn't do this without you. Wow, a dragon. Let me tell you something about Pelicar dragons. They're pretty tough. There's a video on it, one that I will never remember to link in the description. It's older anyway, and I'm not sure it's all that entertaining. Kind of funny, I've been doing this for long enough to say some of my videos are old. Now back on dragons. They're elemental in nature on Pelicar. Fire, earth, oh, you know the 4 elements. Little baby ones are 10th level. Adults 20th, and the ancients are full-blown kaiju at level 30. Adults and up are likely to have some add-on powers too, maybe special blessings from deities or other powerful magics and special immunities. Dresden wasn't kidding. A dragon is a real game changer on the battlefield. But let's not get too excited though. Remember, we're noobs here. We're probably never even going to see the thing again anyway. Or maybe we will. What do I know? I just write this stuff. Say it with me. Like, subscribe, share. Like, subscribe, share. Leave a comment. Visit Natalie's YouTube at Natalie Valet Nichols. Most importantly, please remember to have a great day. We'll see you all next time. Cheers.